Hello, my name is Kelly, and I'm 32 years old. I want to talk about something that happened recently, which helped me through a difficult time with my husband, Kyle, and his family. This situation occurred a few months ago. While things have settled down now, I am still processing everything emotionally. I believe sharing my story might help me feel better and bring some healing. Let me take you back about 4 years to when I made a life-changing decision to marry my boyfriend, Kyle. We had been dating for 4 wonderful years before tying the knot. Kyle was everything I could have hoped for in a partner. He was fun, caring, and incredibly loving. He also came from a wealthy family and had a great job, which allowed him to spoil me with gifts and show his affection in generous ways. One thing we both loved to do together was travel. Exploring new places brought us closer and strengthened our bond. When I shared the news of our relationship with my friends, they were genuinely happy for me. They often told me how lucky I was to have found someone like Kyle. Kyle's generosity stood out, sometimes even to a surprising degree. For instance, when I graduated from college, he bought me a brand new laptop as a gift. While I appreciated his kindness, I sometimes felt uneasy about not being able to spend as much on him as he spent on me. I would tell him, "Kyle, I'm just a college student. I can't afford to match your spending. Maybe we could split other costs instead." But Kyle would always insist on treating me, saying it was something his friends did for their partners too. Over time, I got more comfortable with his generosity, but I still made an effort to contribute as much as I could. Later, when I landed a good job, we started splitting expenses more evenly. We even began talking about moving in together, which felt like a big and exciting step forward in our relationship. One day, Kyle suggested, "Why don't you move in with me? I inherited my house from my grandpa, so you won't have to worry about paying rent. But we can split other expenses to keep things fair." This made a lot of sense to me, and I appreciated how thoughtful he was about making the arrangement balanced for both of us. These moments shaped the beginning of our life together. While we faced challenges later on, which I'll share another time, these early experiences with Kyle reminded me of the love and care that brought us together. It's not always easy to navigate life's ups and downs, but reflecting on our journey helps me remember the strength of our bond. Sharing this story is my way of healing and finding peace with everything we've been through. I wasn't sure about moving in with Kyle, but he reassured me that everything would work out. We agreed to share financial responsibilities in a way that was fair, considering our different incomes. At first, things were going smoothly. However, everything changed when I met Kyle's family. Kyle's parents and sister lived far away, so when they came to visit, I had to host them on my own because Kyle was busy with work. Before their visit, Kyle warned me that they could be a bit judgmental, but he didn't give me much detail. He told me to ignore any hurtful comments and stay calm. I tried to stay positive, hoping everything would go well. But when they arrived, my optimism quickly faded. From the moment they stepped into our home, Kyle's parents and sister didn't seem happy to see me. Instead of a friendly greeting, they looked annoyed. The atmosphere felt tense, and it became clear during our conversations that they didn't like me. Kyle's mom, Julie, wasted no time showing her disapproval. "So, you're the woman Kyle has been seeing," she said in a tone that felt more like an accusation than a question. The situation got worse when Julie questioned me about living in the house. "Do you even pay rent?" she asked sharply. I explained politely, "No, I don't pay rent." Kyle told me the house is fully paid for, but we split all the other bills evenly. I hoped this would clear things up, but Julie didn't seem satisfied. "Just because the house is paid for doesn't mean you can mooch off him," she snapped. "This is his house, not yours. Remember that for the rest of your life." Her words stung, and the conversation became even more uncomfortable. Kyle's sister, Samantha, was no better. She barely spoke to me, and mostly just gave me cold glares. When I tried to ask her about her life, she mentioned being married to a wealthy billionaire and then brushed me off as if I wasn't worth her time. Throughout their visit, Kyle didn't defend me. In fact, he often seemed to agree with his family. Julie and Kyle's dad kept criticizing me, making the entire visit incredibly stressful. They disapproved of my spending on things like makeup and skincare, saying it was wrong because they believed I wasn't contributing enough financially. Their words hurt, especially since I did my best to split the bills fairly and take care of our home. Even Kyle's comments didn't help. He would casually mention things like, Kelly was a struggling student when we first met, in a way that made me feel small and judged. Instead of supporting me, Kyle's words made me feel even more isolated. Looking back, hosting his family alone was one of the hardest things I've had to do. Their visit left me feeling unwelcome and undervalued, and it changed how I saw my relationship with Kyle and his family. I depended on Kyle a lot in the beginning, or at least that's what his family believed. Kyle made comments that supported their assumptions, saying things like how he had to pay for everything early in our relationship because my job didn't match my supposed taste for luxury. Hearing this shocked me. I reminded him that we now split all our bills equally. I also explained that I had always lived a simple life, both before and during our relationship. Any luxury items I owned were gifts from him, and I had often asked him not to buy those because they were too much. Kyle tried to justify his spending, saying his social status required him to give fancy gifts. It became clear that many of his generous gestures were more about impressing others than caring for me. This realization hurt, but I kept my feelings to myself at the time. After his family left, I decided to confront Kyle about the way they treated me. I told him how hurt I felt by their constant criticisms and disrespect. Unfortunately, Kyle brushed it off. "Don't take it to heart, Kelly," he said. "They meant well. You're just overreacting." His dismissive response made me feel unsupported, but I didn't push the issue further. Despite my doubts about his family's feelings toward me, Kyle proposed 6 months later, and I happily accepted. We started planning an engagement party, and this time we agreed to split the costs evenly. At the time, I was running a small side business. It didn't make a lot of money, but it was something I enjoyed doing. Kyle knew about it, but never showed much interest. To me, it was more of a fulfilling hobby than a major income source. When it came time to organize our engagement party, I decided to treat myself a little. Kyle supported this idea, and we worked together to plan a beautiful celebration. I even covered the cost of plane tickets for my extended family to attend, which felt like a big accomplishment for me. The party turned out to be lovely, but as usual, Kyle's family couldn't resist criticizing me. During the celebration, Julie said, "You shouldn't have spent so much on this party, Kelly. You're draining Kyle's account before you're even married. At this rate, you'll end up with a backyard wedding." Her words stung. Then she added, "I thought you were just financially irresponsible, but it's worse than I thought." This time, I stood my ground. I calmly told her, yes, the party was extravagant, but Kyle and I both agreed to it, and we shared the costs. Despite my efforts to explain, Julie refused to see my side. That day made me realize how little they respected me and how much I would have to fight to be accepted in their family. It also made me question how much Kyle truly supported me in difficult situations. I paid my share for the engagement party, and it was actually Kyle's idea to include everyone. He insisted on inviting the entire family and said he didn't mind the expense. Still, the criticism kept coming. Julie accused me of manipulating Kyle into spending too much money. Samantha joined in, saying I should have been more considerate of the costs. Feeling frustrated and overwhelmed, I excused myself and went outside to the lawn, hoping to find some peace. But even there, I couldn't escape. I overheard Samantha and her husband, Jordan, laughing at me. It felt like my engagement party, which was supposed to be a happy occasion, was falling apart. Kyle seemed unaware of how harsh his family was being, or maybe he just didn't want to acknowledge it. Most of Kyle's extended family thought I was jobless and completely dependent on him. This wasn't true, but it hurt to know they saw me that way. My mom noticed how upset I was and pulled me aside. She gently suggested that I rethink the engagement, considering how mean Kyle's family had been to me. After the party, I confronted Kyle about everything, explaining how hurt I was by his family's constant judgment. But he brushed it off, saying they were only joking and that I shouldn't take it seriously. He told me he loved me and assured me that financial matters didn't bother him. Still, I told Kyle I wanted to contribute more, especially toward the rent, to show his family that I wasn't taking advantage of him. But he dismissed the idea, saying it wasn't necessary. As we began planning the wedding, The stress only grew. Kyle's parents continued to criticize me, accusing me of trying to bankrupt their son. Their constant scrutiny made the entire engagement period feel incredibly stressful. I tried to explain that everyone, including my mom, was helping with the wedding expenses. Despite this, Julie accused me of taking advantage of Kyle and called me a gold digger. I told Roger, I'm not asking for any financial help. We're financing the wedding ourselves. But no matter how much I reassured them, they didn't believe me. Even on the wedding day, Samantha criticized the cost of my dress and makeup, even though my mom had paid for those expenses. The wedding ceremony itself went smoothly, and for a moment, I felt relieved. But at the reception, Julie and Roger started up again. They accused me of being careless with money and financially exploiting Kyle. Their words hurt deeply, especially because they were so untrue. Despite their harsh criticism, I tried to focus on the happiness of marrying Kyle. But their constant negativity lingered, making it difficult to fully enjoy the day. I realized that even though I loved Kyle, being part of his family was going to be a challenge. I stayed quiet on our wedding day to keep it special, despite everything that had happened. A few months later, Kyle got a big promotion at work and wanted to celebrate with a family dinner. I was so proud of him and decided to cover all the expenses myself. Kyle, I want this dinner to be amazing, I told him. I'm so proud of you and want to celebrate your success. Kyle appreciated the gesture. I told him that my business was doing well, I had a stable income from my job, and I had recently accessed a trust fund left to me by my grandfather. I carefully planned every detail of the event, wanting it to be perfect for him. When the dinner day arrived, I was nervous but excited. Most of the guests were thrilled with the arrangements and complimented how wonderful everything looked. But Kyle's family was different. They seemed unhappy no matter what I did. Their disapproving looks and whispered comments made it clear they didn't approve of the celebration's lavishness. Things took a turn for the worse during the speeches. Julie, Kyle's mom, stood up and addressed the room. At first, her tone seemed warm as she thanked everyone for coming to celebrate her son's achievement. But then, her words turned harsh. Kyle is hardworking and generous, and he truly deserves this promotion, she began. Unfortunately, he made a poor choice in his partner. It's sad that he ended up with someone who acts like a gold digger. If he had seen her true nature earlier, he wouldn't have to work so hard to support her expensive lifestyle. I was stunned. My heart sank as Julie continued speaking. Her voice was filled with regret as she said, "It's clear to everyone here that his wife has been very extravagant, from the engagement party to tonight's dinner. She has almost drained his accounts." I took a deep breath, trying to keep my composure. I wanted to defend myself, but knew it would only escalate the situation. Julie didn't stop there. "Thank goodness we had Kelly sign a prenuptial agreement before the wedding," she added with a smug tone. "At least some of his assets are protected." Her words were like a punch to the gut. She even made a sarcastic comment about how I could, at least, look like a trophy wife. What hurt the most was that Kyle didn't say anything to defend me. Instead, he agreed with his mother, making me feel completely unsupported. I felt humiliated in front of everyone at the dinner. All I had wanted was to celebrate Kyle's success and show how proud I was of him. Instead, the evening turned into another moment where his family attacked me, and Kyle didn't stand by my side. I realized then that no matter how hard I tried, I would never be good enough for his family, and Kyle's silence made me question if I was even good enough for him. I had reached my limit. Kyle stood in front of me, accusing me of draining his finances. "I can't even afford to spend money on myself anymore because of you," he said. His words cut deep, but what hurt the most was when he called marrying me a mistake. He even compared me to others in a way that made me feel small and unworthy. I was shocked and frustrated, and for the first time, I couldn't stay silent. "Do you really think I'm a gold digger?" I asked, my voice trembling. Kyle's response was harsh and dismissive. "Your lifestyle is damaging to my bank account." His words stung, but they also made me determined to prove myself. "If you all think I'm a gold digger," I said firmly, "then let me show you the truth." In front of everyone, I revealed my bank account balance, proving my financial independence. The room went silent as the disbelief spread across their faces. Julie, unable to accept the truth, accused me. "Did you steal my son's money?" Kyle added fuel to the fire, saying, "You must have taken it from me." I stayed calm despite the hurt. "I don't need to steal from your son," I replied. "This money is my own. I've worked hard for it, and I recently accessed a trust fund from my grandfather." I went on to explain that I had been planning to use that money to buy a bigger house for us. "But now," I said, "that plan seems impossible." Kyle tried to turn things around, suggesting we could still buy the house. "It'll be a wonderful gift," he said, trying to smooth things over. But I had had enough. "No, this is not happening," I said firmly. "Your family has insulted me for far too long, and you've never stood up for me. Instead, you've let them spread lies about me and humiliate me." Kyle tried to dismiss my concerns, saying I was overreacting. But I wasn't backing down. "No, Kyle," I said, my voice steady. "I am not overreacting. Everyone here knows what your family has been saying about me. They were here when you let them insult me during our engagement party." At that moment, I reached my breaking point. The constant disrespect, the lack of support from Kyle, and the relentless criticism from his family, it was all too much. I couldn't take it anymore. "I want a divorce," I said, my voice firm and unwavering. Kyle tried to plead with me, but before I could respond, my mom stepped in. "You never defended my daughter," she said firmly. "It's time she ends this toxic relationship." With that, I walked out of the party, leaving behind a room full of shocked guests. It was one of the hardest decisions I've ever made, but for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was standing up for myself. I was done tolerating the disrespect. I was firm in my decision to leave Kyle and move on with my life. My mom stood by me without hesitation as we left, marking the end of a painful chapter. Her support was exactly what I needed during such a tough time. After the confrontation, I went back to the house I shared with Kyle, packed my belongings, and moved in with my mom for comfort and safety. The next day, I reached out to my cousin, who is a lawyer, to start the divorce process. Because of the prenuptial agreement, the process was straightforward. I didn't have to share my assets with Kyle, which was a relief. Things escalated quickly when Kyle and his family showed up at my mom's house, demanding to talk. My mom stood her ground and told them to leave. Kyle kept trying to contact me, switching between apologizing and threatening me. I saved all his messages in case I needed to file a restraining order. My mom's unwavering support gave me the strength to stand firm. At one point, Kyle even tried to confront me at my workplace. Thankfully, security stepped in and escorted him out. That incident made me realize it was time to let go of my job, especially since my growing business was doing well. I resigned that very day, ready to focus on my future. 2 weeks later, I served Kyle the divorce papers at his workplace. Soon after, he went to my old office, only to find out that I had resigned. He started sending flowers and gifts to my mom's house, but we returned them all. His continued attempts to reach me felt like harassment, and I began to think about relocating for a fresh start. With my mom's encouragement, I found a new house in a neighboring state. It was a peaceful, safe space where I could rebuild my life away from Kyle. While waiting for the divorce to be finalized, I focused on healing and preparing for the next chapter of my life. The divorce process took about 6 months, but it went smoothly thanks to the prenuptial agreement. During that time, I settled into my new home and changed my phone number to avoid Kyle's messages. I worked on my business, surrounded myself with positive people, and started to feel more like myself again. Although the journey was difficult, moving forward felt like a breath of fresh air. I was finally free from the toxic environment I had endured, and I was proud of myself for taking control of my life. My mom's constant support reminded me that I deserved peace and happiness. This was the start of a new, brighter chapter, and I was ready to embrace it fully. I heard that Kyle's life started to fall apart after our breakup. He blamed his parents for everything that happened between us and began facing problems at work. His colleagues started keeping their distance from him, and his seniors were unhappy because the situation brought negative attention to their company. To make matters worse, Kyle's parents tried to spread rumors about me, claiming I was unfaithful. However, those rumors didn't go anywhere because they weren't true, and people didn't believe them. In contrast, my life began to improve in so many ways. I focused all my energy on growing my business, and it flourished. I finally had the freedom to do what I wanted without the constant stress and criticism I had experienced before. With time, I started dating again, but I took things slow. I was careful about who I let into my life, but I stayed hopeful that I would find someone who truly valued and respected me for who I am. Even though Kyle caused me a lot of pain, I realized that going through those challenges made me a much stronger person. I learned how to stand up for myself and gained a clearer understanding of what I wanted in a relationship and in life. Looking ahead, I felt excited and optimistic about the future. I was confident in my ability to overcome any obstacles and knew that I deserved a partner who treated me with kindness and respect. I had grown so much from the experience and was ready to embrace the brighter days ahead.